morning. Thank you all for coming out. I want to give you a briefing on an incident that had occurred here earlier this morning. First, I want to introduce a couple of the people that we have here. I have Ray Ariano, the Assistant City Manager. I have Farah Muscadin, the current Police Monitor. I've got Margaret Moore, the District Attorney, and then members of the command staff and executive team from APD are here with me as well. Earlier this morning at 4:18 a.m., the Austin Police Department received a call for the 4800 block of Tanney involving a disturbance. The caller reported that he had just killed his father and his brother, and that he had taken a shower, and that when we arrived we would find the bodies and the murder weapon inside the residence. That was the call that the officers were initially responding to at 4:18 a.m. Officers arrived on scene 5 minutes later and began trying to work through the situation. We had several officers arrive and made contact with the subject that made the call here in the street. Initially, the officers were many houses down communicating with this subject over their PA system. What is captured on the video is multiple commands and conversations telling him that we did not want to have anybody get hurt here today. We can hear commands being given to please drop the weapon, please drop the pickaxe, multiple attempts to get him to drop a weapon. We then had officers put together a plan to approach this subject after speaking to him for 10 or so minutes to move a little bit closer, again, to try and resolve this peacefully. Again, with multiple commands being given about dropping the weapon and dropping the pickaxe. The officers moved forward and they were again talking to him. They're calling him by name and again asking him to drop the weapon, telling him nobody had to get hurt today. Officers at some point then deployed a less lethal munition on this subject, and as he approached the house. Officers followed up on the suspect, and what can be seen on video is, again, while giving multiple commands, they used less lethal impact munitions. The subject can be seen with what appears to be a chair in his hand, and he is actually attempting to block the rounds that these officers are firing, these less lethal rounds. So multiple less lethal rounds were fired, and it appears as though we attempted to use a taser, again, all in an attempt to defuse the situation. And then what we see happen is the subject raises the pickaxe and comes at the officers in a rapid pace, and officers fired at the suspect, and he then goes down in the driveway, at which point our officers moved in and secured him and immediately called in for medical assistance at that time. The suspect has been pronounced deceased from this incident this morning, and the investigation is ongoing at this time. What we do know is this suspect is a 46-year-old Hispanic male. We had 5 officers that were involved in firing their weapons here this morning. And they are all going to be placed on administrative duty, as is our standard practice. We also had 3 officers that attempted to resolve this through the use of less lethal munitions, those being the less lethal impact rounds along with the taser, and we will handle those officers the same way at this time and have them on administrative duty while we work through the initial part of this investigation. I do want to say that my heart goes out, the department's heart, the city's heart goes out to this family. I've had the opportunity to, again, view the videos and look at the attempts these officers made to resolve this today. But when we respond to an incident like this, and not knowing what had happened in that house and whether we needed to get in that house to render medical aid as well, there was a need to get in and make sure that there had not been anyone harmed. And in fact, there was not anybody harmed inside that residence when we were able to get in the residence to ensure no one needed medical attention inside. We have also found a note that is affixed to one of the doors to this residence that, based on the content of that note, appears to be a suicide note. So that's where we're at in this investigation. We're in the very early stages. We've got multiple investigations going on. The police department is conducting our internal affairs investigation to determine if the actions here today were compliant with our departmental policies, and then our special investigations unit, along with the district attorney's office, is conducting a criminal review of this incident as well. And as I've mentioned, Ms. Muscadin, the police monitor, is here as well, overseeing the operation. So the 5 officers that were involved in this incident, 3 of them have been with the department for 1 year. One of the officers has been with us 6 years, and one of the officers has been with us less than a year. He's a new officer for us. So at this time, I will open it up for questions. However, given that we are in the preliminary stages, there's not a lot more that we can put out at this time.
Just to be clear, it's 8 officers total who are now on leave, 5 involved with the shooting, 3 involved with the less lethal rounds.
Yes, that is correct.
And then, so when he called reporting that he killed his father, who was the other person he said he...
The reporter called, the person that called in stated that he had killed his father and his brother.
But that was false.
Correct. There was nobody. Once we were able to safely get into the residence, we did not find anyone inside the residence that had been harmed.
There were some people behind the yellow tape just mentioning that this man was mentally unstable. Were there any signs of that as y'all dealt with him, that there was anything mentally wrong with him as y'all dealt with him?
Well, that's going to be part of the ongoing investigation, and that'll be some of the issues that will come up as we look into the incident here today, as well as any past interactions we've had with him.
Have you been called to that residence before for any other incidents in the past?
I don't have that information here right now.
You said the officers were using his name when they were talking to him. Does that indicate some sort of prior knowledge of who this person was?
Well, it's apparent that the officers at least had a name they were using to call him. Whether that was a name he gave when he called 911 this morning or not, I don't know. But again, we try to, in de-escalating these situations, we try and build that relationship, and by using his name and trying to build a relationship to hopefully come to a successful resolution.
How long between when officers arrived and the shots were fired?
The first officer arrived on scene 25 minutes before the shots were fired. So we were here for a little while before the shots were fired.
Last question.
When officers were trying to negotiate before they shot, was the man outside or inside of his house?
This entire incident occurred outside the house from the officers when they encountered him here on the street, and then when they approached and again tried to get him to drop the weapon and to be able to safely get him into custody so we could get into that residence to see if there were anyone in need of medical attention. Everything occurred outside.
How did you realize it was the same man?
Well, that's part of the investigation. We believe he is the same person based on everything we have right now. Thank
Just
you.
real quick, you said reviewing video.